there's something that continues from lifetime to lifetime. And we can talk about what that is in different ways. Um, and sometimes I'll just use the word soul in the same way or kind of synonymous way that I'll use the word mind. But I don't mean mind just like the mind that's waving his hands right now, like Kelvin's mind. But it's that part of our mind that we use to drive a car. We focus, we look through the windshield, the part of our mind that uses language to speak. But when I say mind, I mean that plus the vastness of our mind.
Hello, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on For Soul Illumination with my friend Kelvin Chin. Hi, Kel. How are
Hey,
you?
hey, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm great. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for meeting with me. I know you're traveling right now, and I really appreciate you taking the time to help our audience understand what you know about soul that probably not very many people have figured out. So,
Mm,
so Cal, why don't we start with, for the people that don't know you, if
sure.
you could start with talking about your near-death experience possibly, and then they'll get a little feeling for your perspective.
Okay. So my near-death experience happened when I was 21 years old. I almost drowned. This is the short version of the story, but I had already been meditating for 2 years before this happened. And that's important to the story because basically my meditation saved my life when I almost drowned. And what do I mean by that? Well, I got pulled out in what's called a rip current into the ocean from the beach, lift my legs up to dunk underwater. Next thing I know, I see these 300-foot high cliffs at Torrey Pines State Park in San Diego, California, actually in La Jolla, California, getting smaller and smaller really fast. And a friend of mine told me because the cliffs were about 3 or 4 inches high in a matter of seconds, maybe a minute or something. He told me I was almost 2 miles out. So I was in the middle of the ocean. I'm exhausted because I'm trying to swim back in, which is what you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to swim at an angle to the beach. But I was 21 years old. I panicked and I started going down in the ocean. I started going down. I see the surface of the water getting farther and farther away from me. And I left my body for a split second, but I was not unfamiliar. I was familiar with my mind being separate from my body because I've been meditating for 2 years every day, twice a day. And so I knew that my mind was not the same as my body. Of course, they influence each other, but I knew they were different and distinct. So when my mind popped out, I recognized that and I willed myself back in. I just desired to be, when I say willed, I just had the desire, no, I'll get back in. Something like that. It wasn't even a thought, it was just a feeling. And my mind went right back in, and I struggled to 4 or 5 feet to the surface of the ocean again, stopped panicking. I told myself, don't panic, take your time. That's the only thought that I remember having. I probably had other panicky thoughts, but anyway, I remember thinking that was the main thought I had. And I took my time back, swimming back in. My friend who was watching me on the beach, there were only the two of us at the beach at the time that afternoon. No lifeguards, no nothing, just the two of us. She said it took me about an hour to swim back in. That was my near-death experience. It was close. It was like an out-of-body experience. It was a nearing death experience. Call it whatever you want. I almost died, but the meditation saved my life because I recognized what had happened. If I had a classic, what I call in some of my books, as you know, I have a few books out there. Um, And one of my books, I talk about near-death experiences. If I had a classic near-death experience, like I talk about in my first book, you know, I would have been on the bottom of the ocean floor, 50 feet, 100 feet down. And once I realized, whoa, you know, and there's no way I would have been able to swim back to the surface. I would have been out of breath and I was already exhausted. So I would have died had it not been for meditation.
Well, just so everyone knows, this is the book that you're speaking about. I have all three of your books right here, and I'm
Yeah,
a big fan. What you'll find when you read Kelvin's books is just as he's speaking to you right now, his books, it's almost like he's talking to you when you read them. And that's the way he writes them. So they're real easy read and they're profound. So the other thing you didn't mention that I want to add to what you just said is that you started doing transcendental meditation because of anxiety in the first place. So you
right.
had already somehow tapped yourself on the shoulder and said, okay, I can control this. This isn't my circumstances. My parents didn't do this to me, whatever. All of the storylines that so many people have, you had already taken a step towards empowerment by learning a skill that could help you and help lots of other people, right?
Right. Yeah. I was desperate at the time. I was, as you say, I was highly anxious. I was a sophomore, my fall semester, sophomore year at college up in New Hampshire. I went to Dartmouth College, and I was desperate because I was so anxious and I needed something. And that's why I learned. I didn't learn for spiritual reasons. I mean, I had started having spiritual experiences, you could call it, of the mind being separate from the body and that kind of thing,
Yeah,
which became very, very normal, as I said, for me, which, you know, prior to having that almost drowning experience. But that's not why I learned to meditate. I learned to meditate because I was stressed out and it
right.
reduced my stress. And I was a test subject in some of the very first medical studies ever done in the United States on any kind of meditation, 1970, 1971.
That's cool.
So, yeah, that's why I learned to meditate. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a little bit more about, if we can,
Mm,
about your definition of soul.
mm,
And so you were capable of training yourself to to um to be embodied or not, or separate yourself and calm yourself. So
mhm.
you could control your in reaction to your environment in a different way. And
Yes, I
then,
did that.
and then as you went on, I mean, you've had so many experiences. What I want to do is let the people know about this. This is your newest book called After the Afterlife, where
Right.
you talk about being aware of 6,000 years of lifetimes, which again, this is why I wanted to talk. Have you explained your definition of soul?
Mhm.
Because you have a very good articulate way of explaining the personality that was in all these lifetimes. And you guys, this book's great. All of
Yeah.
his books are great. But
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you. Yeah. So there's something that continues from lifetime to lifetime. And we can talk about what that is in different ways. Um, and sometimes I'll just use the word soul in the same way or kind of synonymous way that I'll use the word mind. But I don't mean mind just like the mind that's waving his hands right now, like Kelvin's mind. But it's that part of our mind that we use to drive a car. We focus, we look through the windshield, the part of our mind that uses language to speak. But when I say mind, I mean that plus the vastness of our mind, the expanded conscious capacity or conscious awareness of our mind. I include all of that when I use the word mind. I'm teaching in 68 countries now on Zoom and so forth. And so I try to use English that's easy to understand. So I use the word mind much more than I use the word consciousness or awareness or soul, for example. But the viewers here could interchange those words synonymously, probably, if they feel more comfortable. The word soul is an interesting concept, and I will sometimes, you'll hear me, and you've heard me many times in some of the classes you've taken with me, Kathy, use the word soul and mind interchangeably. But if we really want to be really, really accurate about this, and sometimes I'll say our mind is eternal and so forth and so on. If we really want to be accurate about this, I would say our soul, this is the way I view it anyway, okay? Our soul is eternal. Eternal means what? No beginning, no end. It's forever. That's what forever means. You can't have the beginning and then go forever. Soul energy cannot be created nor destroyed. First law of thermodynamics. That means no beginning, no end. So eternal is the way I define eternal, and I think our souls are eternal, is that which is uninfluenced by the continuum of change. Not influenced, uninfluenced by the continuum of change. Well, we live in the continuum of change. Obviously, everything's changing and so forth. I think our soul exists. It's that which exists uninfluenced by that. All right. So what can we talk about? Because words exist in the continuum of change. So what I talk about that we can talk about that is I'm going to make up a word. I make up words when I give I give classes. The talkability, the ability to be talked about, uh, I call personality. There are personality transfers from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. Does it exist? Does it exist? Is it uninfluenced by the continuum of change? No, it is influenced by the continuum of change because it exists in the continuum of change, and we can talk about it. But it takes very long periods of time, thousands of years, many millennia for people's personality traits to change. That's my experience over 6,000 years, as you say, of memories that I have of a couple of dozen lifetimes that go back around 6,000 years. Now, maybe I've had more lifetimes that I don't remember over that 6,000 years. I may have. In other words, on planet Earth, or well, on another planet too. But I mean, in physical form, as opposed to non-biological form on the other side. I may have hung out who knows how many times. But I have memories from a couple dozen, go back 6,000 years. What do I talk about in the book you just shared with everybody, my third book? I talk about our personality traits, or my personality traits that I've noticed through these various lifetimes over 6,000 years. And have they changed over those 6,000 years? Yes, but very, very slightly and so forth. So they are influenced by the continuum of change. I don't consider those technically my soul. My soul is uninfluenced by the continuum of change, is eternal. So that's kind of if that confuses people, they can call me or they can talk to me for free. They can find me on my website. And that's true. They can't do that from anywhere in the world. But anyway, you could
Okay.
ask me more. Go ahead.
Okay, so some people feel that we're having all of those lifetimes at the same time. What do you think about that? No?
No, that's not my experience, and it doesn't make sense rationally. And these things, my experience is that these what people consider mystical or esoteric things can be understood and explained rationally. And so the existence of time being a sequence of events, to me, that is the experience in the universe, that there is a past, present, and future. That we can get confused by having certain experiences within this past, present, future reality. We can have experiences where it feels like we are having another experience in another lifetime, and it's happening right now. I've had experiences like that, and I talk about them, some of those experiences in that book, where they're so real. They are happening right now in my consciousness, as real as they were 1,000 years ago, but it's a memory that's so vivid and so real that I can have sensory experience. I can have all five senses operating at the same time in that memory, but it's a memory of something that happened in the past. So I could understand how somebody could have such a vivid experience. Like, I've had hundreds, maybe thousands of experiences like that over the last 50 years since my past life memories opened up, and yet be confused by that and kind of interpret that, in my opinion, misunderstand that as, oh, well, the lifetime's going on at the same time. Because the other aspect that can be confusing to people is, well, I learned from that so much because of this experience. That's true. And I have, absolutely, from these other experiences and memories that I've had. But that doesn't mean that the lifetime has changed the other lifetime. And that's, I think, a conflation. That's a point of, sometimes you'll hear people say that the lifetime affects, my present lifetime affected that one in the past. No, my past lifetime in the past affected my present lifetime. That makes sense to me, and that's been my experience. But I'm not going back and changing things that happened in the past by stuff I'm doing now in the present.
That's interesting because a lot of people say that, you're changing your family line if you clear the generational trauma, all of that. People say that you should do it for your family, and
Yeah,
that
you do it for yourself, and secondarily you do it for others. To me, that's how life
yeah,
operates. I mean,
yeah,
you can have altruistic and so forth intentions, and there's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, we do things for ourselves to help ourselves, for our own personal self-development, self-knowledge. That's why people use the word self-knowledge. I would say called personal self-development, because it's very personal.
right.
But yeah, altruistic, sure, that's fine. But the thing is, what that flies in the face of, the way you said that some people talk about that concept flies in the face of free will, individual decision making by each individual mind. So it flies in the face of that because it implies that I can do something that's going to change somebody else's life, outside of their own choices that they're making in their life. And that's actually, there's a hubris to that if you think about it. There's an arrogance to that actually I know better than that other person or that group of people or that country of people or whatever. And we do this as a human race all the time in politics, and we're very, very pushy about what we think is best for other people. And so that, when we say that, even in a loving, altruistic way about changing the lineage of a trauma, the dysfunction of the family and so forth and so on, there's a hubris there to say that I'm going to change what they want to do because it's better for them. I know best what's better for them. That's the essence of what people are saying. Now, they don't say that, and they may not even think that. They may, in their heart of hearts, really believe sincerely that if they could only get that other group or person or people to shift their thinking, it'll be so much better for them. And they may even be factually accurate. I'm not saying that's wrong. They're wrong. They may actually be right about that from an external standpoint, like a third party looking at it and saying, yeah, that would be actually healthier for the person. But you're usurping the other person's free will. And that is a violation to me that is so, I don't know. It's you're trying to usurp their free will. First of all, you can't. So you're going to hit your head against the wall because the 2-year-old child can always say no to you. It doesn't matter how old you are and how big physically you are as their parent. They can always say no. And that person can always say no. And so you can't really take their free will away from them. You're fooling yourself thinking you can.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, well, I like the idea that the lessons, because it seems like everything in hindsight ends up being for your highest good, but that's in reflection, not while you're going through it.
Exactly. And that's a crucial distinction that people need to make, because that's like somebody just posted this on my Facebook, actually. Tragically, her daughter died, and my heart goes out to her, and
Oh,
she knows who I'm talking about, Carlene, if she sees this video. But she just posted an essay. She's happened to post the essay that we're going to talk about right now, from my second book on, um, and I can't remember the exact title of the essay. There's a collection of 67 essays I've written, that book. Yeah. Marcus Aurelius updated. And it's something like, you know, how the notion that everything happens for a reason can cause suffering. And like you say, when people come, everything happens for a reason. That was meant to be. Those phrases, people use them in a prospective way, looking forward, not in the way that you're using it, looking backwards, which I agree with. Hindsight, yeah, look backwards and use the experience as an opportunity, looking back at it to learn something about yourself or other people and so forth. But it wasn't meant to be that your child died, or that your child, in some cases, I've helped people, I help people with all kinds of anxiety issues, and sometimes the child has died by suicide, tragically, in some cases. Maybe not in the case that I was just talking about, but in other cases. And to say to that person that that was meant to be, that that child meant to be murdered. I've helped people with murders and so forth. Their child or their loved one or their husband or whatever has been murdered. That those were choices other people made that were terrible choices to murder that loved one. It wasn't meant to be. That's a prospective thing. Can you look back at that, and can you learn from that experience? And could even the dead person who was murdered look back at that experience that may have been out of their control, to see if there were things that may have been in their control? But you cannot change history, as they say, as the maxim goes, but you can learn from it. Yeah.
right. Okay, so as we just brought up, is that you write this wonderful book, and I love it, Marcus Aurelius Updated, and you do have an interesting way to live, to suggest to live your life more enjoyably with this book. Do you want to share a little bit about that? Because as we're talking about soul, and you've already defined it in many times with me, that soul is a personality that has certain attributes and that is carried from lifetime to lifetime. Maybe part of the question could be how this lifetime has positively affected your current lifetime. And then, of course, I have more questions after that.
Sure. So uh, on that, I would say, um, for me anyway, I could speak about myself and how I teach my students. What I teach my students, I would say the nut is that, how can we look at different experiences that we've had? How can we learn different things from those experiences? How can we learn about ourselves and other people through those experiences, in order to live a happier, healthier, more effective life? That's essentially what those 67 essays are all about how to look at this aspect, how to look at happiness, how to look at forgiveness, how to look at suffering, how to look at grief, how to look at all these different concepts and experiences that everybody bumps into in life. And how can we look at those as opportunities to learn about people and about ourselves? And how can we how can we figure out where are the points of choice that we have in those various life experiences that we all bump up against in all our respective lives? Where are those key moments of choice and where we could make a different decision, or not just a decision to act, but to think in a different way? What's our perspective? Can we shift our perspective? There's a phrase I use in my classes all the time. I talk about discernment, being able to discern. Discern just means to distinguish. Can you distinguish between thinking this way or thinking that way at that moment? And I'm not talking about mental manipulation. I'm talking about spontaneously in that moment.
What I'd like to add to that is it really is about your values. What this book talks about is he had tremendous values, even in the type of work he was doing. I mean, he was a Roman emperor, and they were going around killing people, and right? I mean, but he had his philosophy of life and his values are in each one of these essays, right?
Yeah. And so that's one of my past lives, right?
Right.
And so and you'll see in my teaching this lifetime, even before I was aware that I was one of my past lives, parallels of the teaching between my teaching of to myself. Again, the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, that book is just a collection of thoughts that Marcus wrote about himself. He never planned that to be a book. Somebody pulled that together in the year 800 or 900 AD, and then somebody called it Meditations by Marcus Aurelius around the 1700s or something. So it was something that he just was self-reflecting, and you'll see parallels between what I wrote about myself and my teaching and so forth. And then, but yeah, those ideas were for what? Those ideas for, and we're in Roman time, as you say. There's a lot of killing going on, but there's a cultural norm that exists throughout history in different eras, the different eons, over the millennia of history, different cultural norms exist. And our cultural norm now is very different from it was then. But so what I'm looking at through in my third book, in this book, is through different lenses of the lifetimes, I give people a glimpse into certain cultural norms at the time, just because of the nature of the stories. But what is the constant? The constant is the values that Kathy's talking about, the values of my personality through the eons of history. Whether we're talking about ancient Rome or ancient Carthage, or we're talking about when I was a slave, whether we're talking about being a Lakota in the 1800s, or World War II fighter pilot in the 1940s, 30s, and 40s, or whether we're talking about my Buddhist monk lifetimes in Asia and so forth, my several Buddhist monk lifetimes, or my ancient Egyptian lifetimes. Those are all very, very, very disparate and distinct and different cultures and cultural norms existing. But what's the constant that's gone through all of those for thousands of years is my values, is my personality traits. Yeah.
So I have a customer that's brilliant, that at one point she had an experience where she experienced 15 of her past lives within an hour and a half. And she went through dying, living, dying, living, dying. I mean, I don't know, 15, that's not very much time on each one of them. But she walked around for days. She still talks about it. I mean, it was overwhelming. In your case, you were able to unpack. I mean, that's like major, like change your perspective of everything, and learn lessons rapid fire. Whereas in your case, you got to unfold and unwrap the packages. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Wow. I mean, wow, my heart goes out to her. Ooh, and that's a short period of time. because as you talk about overwhelming, I can only imagine. Yeah, mine started, and people got to understand, I didn't even believe in reincarnation. I didn't have any, I didn't believe in heaven. I didn't believe in an afterlife. This started happening to me spontaneously in 1977. Um, and so, and I didn't even know it was past life related stuff initially. I just thought I had a bad dream at first. And then, a friend of mine finished the dream. When I started telling him about it 8 months later, I was being crucified upside down during an experience during a group meditation and so forth. And so I went through all the physical, like literally my body flipped over and so forth by itself, energetically, et cetera, et cetera. Um, Spontaneous stuff just started happening, unfolding. But for me, it was different from what you described for that she experienced. Mine came in pieces, and it was like a whole bunch of different jigsaw puzzles coming, like being delivered to me, as if a whole bunch of jigsaw puzzles with no box cover. So I didn't even know, like, when you have the jigsaw puzzle, you have the box cover, you know what it's supposed to look like eventually. It was like a whole bunch of lifetimes with 100 or 200 million or billion jigsaw puzzle pieces. Each lifetime is that. And then I'm getting multiples of this. And I can't remember, but at some point in 1977, 8, 78, 79, I was probably juggling memories coming from 6 or 8 different lifetimes. And it was like, oh, does that puzzle piece go with this one? Oh, no, it goes with this one over here. Oh, and then, oh, that puzzle piece goes with this one and fits in with the other 20 pieces over there. Oh, and this one fits over here with the 5 pieces in this puzzle. It was like that for me. And so, and that's continued to present.
Wow.
And
So as you integrate these, that's where, I mean, I know when you and I talked about you writing this book, that this wasn't an easy book to write, because you had to really process each one of these lifetimes. And again, this is what, I'm hoping that this type of work helps other people with their soul awakening, which is happening whether we're ready or not right now. That right now we're all being upgraded. That's my belief. I don't know, you'll probably tell me it's not, but but
well, I think there's influence going on, and certainly we can influence each other. But some people have barriers to stuff, and some
uh-huh.
people have barriers to opening. And so, if people are open to opening, then yeah, they will be influenced by others who are open to opening and so forth and so on. But if people are not open to opening, and because they have fear, why wouldn't they be open to opening? Because generally it's one word, it's fear, and some form of fear of all kinds of stuff. But that shuts people down. And so they may not be ready to open until some point in the future.
Well,
That's the thing. But
what the reason why I said that is I believe that the whole solar system is being upgraded with photonic light. The whole galaxy, we're in the side of the Milky Way that's getting a lot more light. And so that gives the opportunity for people to release a bunch of stuff. And that's what I'm seeing. And I'm seeing a lot of sensitives like me and you that are being affected by the CMEs, which is science. This isn't all just woo, although I like.
all that is above my pay grade. I
Well,
I could talk about souls. I can't talk about the effects of the ultraviolet rays or whatever
oh,
you
okay. Well, all I was saying is that what I'm hoping is that your experience and your philanthropy, really, because these books are college college degree books that give you a whole new insight into this reality that we're in that isn't religious, but it's conscious. And what these books do is help you navigate your own life in a different way. plus the classes that you give. I've taken two of them. I love them. And then I'd love if you would share a little bit about your nonprofits,
Sure.
so that people knew about the work that you're doing. But again, all of these past lives and your awareness of it put you into action to help and serve others. This
Right.
isn't just, hey, I'm Kelvin and I'm cool and I know this stuff. It's all about how do you serve. Would you
It's
share a
all
little
about,
bit about your nonprofits?
yeah, and the past lives is all about how has it helped me today as Kelvin Chin. The past life and who I was is irrelevant. I don't care if people believe or don't believe what I've experienced. I take that and I use it today to help me be more effective in my life in the 21st century as Kelvin Chin. That's how I teach it, and that's how I take it. My nonprofits, I have nonprofits that help people with death and dying, anything that's related with death and dying and reducing the fears around death and dying, any kind of fears around death and dying. And I also have a nonprofit where I teach meditation, and I've been teaching now for 51 years. I've been teaching meditation, and I have students in over 60 countries and thousands. I've taught thousands and thousands of people, and I call it turning within meditation now. I left the Maharishi's organization in the late 1970s when they went off and got into other kinds of stuff. And I wanted to stay focused on teaching meditation, and I've made it easier, and I've removed all the cultural trappings. So to your point that you just mentioned, all of my teaching is non-religious, non-cultural. So I've removed anything cultural looking, any quasi-religious looking anything from all of my teachings, including the teaching of the meditation. So I help people across all cultures and all religions, and including people who are not religious and are atheist and agnostic. Everybody goes to the afterlife. You do not have to believe in God. There is no belief in anything necessary to go and continue one's journey as an eternal soul. That's bottom line. And as I said earlier, people can find me at kelvinchin.org on my website and go to the contact page and send me an email, and I will talk to people for free, initial consultation free, about anything that I teach, anything that they want to talk about.
Yes, and so generous. I have to say, I love your meditation class. You didn't have to wear special clothes, listen to special music, and do contortions with hands or
And it's
feet.
easy. It's
It's
easy.
super easy. And the idea that we can reduce anxiety and fear at a moment's notice just by choosing to is really an important tool for everyone right now. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just so much going on, so much chaos in the world, and with the internet, we know all about it instantaneously. So
Yeah.
if you want to give yourself the gift of peace and capacity to what's the right word? I want to say that I believe that everyone that's come here at this time came here for specific co-creation with the universe, but if you're in chaos, in fear, you probably won't get to do it. So I'm just hoping as
It's
many
the
people
way.
as possible find
Yeah.
Kelvin and take his meditation class and read his books and realize how much more divinely connected you can be.
I would say that what you were wrestling with, I would just succinctly say, can we increase our capacity, or make actualize the potential that everybody has? Everybody has the potential to be a loving, kind person. Everybody has the potential. Can we actualize that? Can we increase the probability and the number of people who actualize the potential? And so that's what I do. I help people reduce their fears. And by reducing their fears, they can expand their conscious capacity of their consciousness. And people may think, oh, I don't have any fears. Everybody has fears. Hidden in the dark recesses, the deep recesses of their ancientness of their existence.
Right.
Yeah, maybe you don't have anything obvious from this lifetime, but how about the 5 or 10 or 15 or 100 or 1,000 or 5,000 lifetimes ago?
Right.
So that stuff is resides in everybody. Nobody is perfect. So I am the anti-perfection guy, you know, in terms of believing that anybody is perfect, but we can move towards greater growth and improve and in actualizing our potential is the way I would say that. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. I knew I would be corrected, and I'm totally cool with it. And I love, again, everyone, I hope that you will get a chance to look at any of this work and take Kelvin up on if you are needing guidance. You can see he's full of wisdom, and there's no ego. It's only in service to help others that he shares all of these beautiful gifts. So thank you, Kelvin. I love you very much. And thank
Yes.
you. And thank you for being on For Soul Illumination. And please share this, everyone, if you found this useful, or if your family or friends might need help. And please subscribe.
Oh, I
And
want to make one comment, Kathy, about this mirror behind me. I'm visiting a friend of mine. I'm in his dining room and I turned the video on and it's there. I was like, what? Anyway, people are kind of going, what's up with that mirror? Anyway,
well, anyway, well, your halo's showing, that's all.
I
But
know, right?
thank you so much for everything you do. And again, everyone, please share and like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.